Hello, everyone. It's Michelle with
Hello.
2 L's.
Greetings and salutations.
Who are you?
It's Natalie the Red here.
And welcome to, Force of Light Entertainment, but to another weekly roundup. We are excited to be back. Obviously, last week we had off because it was Thanksgiving, and we hope you all had an awesome, wonderful, thankful Thanksgiving. We hope it was enjoyable for you. And tonight we have a special guest who should be with us shortly. But first, let's say hello to everyone that's here.
Yeah,
Hello to Megan Mack. Yes, always nice to see you. Marcos, our awesome moderator. Always good to see you.
We're thankful for you, Marcos.
Very much so. Share Bear. We are always happy to see the one and only Share Bear. Nice to see you. Dominic, always nice to see you.
Yes.
Keely, it is lovely to see you as well. It's nice to see everyone. I'm going to say
It
that
is,
every time.
It is. We like to see you.
We do. Hello, Brett. Good to see you. Warren, hello. Hope you are doing well today. And Chris, the one and only Chris with all the James Bond puns. Nice to see you. And hello to Christian Fandom Geek. Nice to see you as well. And Roger H. I almost missed you there. Nice to see you, Roger.
Hello.
Or Raj. It's Raj, not Roger. Raj. Yes. Raj.
The R is silent.
Yes, I got that.
And it's not there.
I got that. I went for what my mind normally just thinks when I see R-O-D, Rogers, what I usually think. But yeah, Raj H. Nice to see you. It is awesome to see you guys. Well, chat, we hope you guys, again, had an awesome Thanksgiving. And let me give you an update. Most of you follow me on Twitter. I think all of you follow me on Twitter who are on Twitter.
Do you even follow Force of Light on Twitter?
They do if they're on Twitter. But you guys know, so we record ourselves watching Tremors. Of course, many of you were there for us, joined us on last Monday, or not, well, actually 2 Mondays ago, I guess at this point, the Monday of Thanksgiving. You joined us as we did our live discussion, just kind of reviewing Tremors.
Yeah.
But we have been editing Tremors, or we have someone helping us with that. And I have had to upload it and have it edited again and re-upload. And we keep getting copyright blocked.
So we're learning as we kind of dive into this new realm of videos.
And there's things I think we can do next time to make it easier. But I think with reaction videos in general, a lot of times you're going to have to appeal it for fair use and fair dealings type of situation. So I say all that to say, I believe it is coming. Be patient. We accept your prayers for this to happen.
And may the force be with us.
Yes, because we recorded that. We've had someone edit it. He spent like hours editing this and he keeps having to tweak it and we keep trying. I mean, I've uploaded that sucker like seriously 7 times at this point to YouTube. And every time I fix what they say needs fixed, they come up with something else that needs fixed. It's
like, oh, not so easy there.
Yeah, it's been quite the ordeal. So it is hopefully coming. I mean, I believe we'll be able to get it on. I just may have to literally send an appeal to not Facebook to YouTube. And again, I believe and shout out to Ryan Kennel who sent something to help me because again, we should be able to appeal it under fair use because no one is going to like not pay to watch Tremors because they watched our edited down video that's like 26 minutes long and has us talking over the movie. And so hopefully we're very hopeful that that's going to come out soon, but it is not out yet. So there's that.
Keely, I see that you don't do Twitter. Good for you, girl.
Yes.
I mean, nobody really needs Twitter. I myself go days without getting on Twitter.
Days, probably months.
Not that long.
You go a while.
Maybe a couple weeks every now.
She goes a while.
But yeah.
And look who it is.
The one and only.
The smooth 3PO.
I'm surprised his super chat didn't just
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Well, it should make you feel good that Dominic got into Drunk 3PO's chat and he just put, hi, Natalie.
I love that, Dominic.
So.
I love it.
But Jay.
You guys, here, this is like, some directions. When you're in Jay's chat, just start flooding him with hi Natalie's.
Jay's gonna be
Just
like,
do
thanks.
it. Do it.
He's like, I sent you money and this is the thanks that I get. Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
This is what we have for you.
Revolt! It gives me wings!
Because Jay gives us wings.
Jay's hello to Michelle gives her wings. And it gives me rejection issues.
Thank you very much, Jay.
I'm kidding.
We appreciate it. Cool. Oh, and I want to say hello to Mr. Buttcrack. I saw him in there. To the most lovely Buttcrack on YouTube. It is nice to see you in the chat always.
The loveliest, some say.
And hello to Nicole, our dear friend Nicole. It is nice to see you as well. And yes, happy
December 1st.
Yes.
I just looked at the calendar today and I was like, hey, it's December 1st.
Do you know, it's like I love
the
months of October, November, and December.
Yeah.
And those months fly. Like the months I don't like, June, July, and August, they just stay forever. But the months I like, I mean, it's December 1st. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to love it when we eventually roll back around to summer.
Oh, summer, no.
Chuck says, wow. I'll let all the other guys talk to Nat. That's true. That's true. But yeah.
Touche, Jay. Touche.
And I want to start first. Before we bring out our guest, let me share something. Let's see, share screen. I want to share something. I know everyone in our chat is big Gina Carano fans. And I want to show what Gina said. Because you guys know that there's this new version of the coof that is coming around. That the scientists that discovered it in South America said the cases that she's seen thus far are so mild that people haven't even lost taste or smell, which has commonly gone with this one. Right. But of course, mass hysteria has already begun and already talks of greater lockdowns have begun from this administration. So I want us to read what Gina said, the leader of the rebellion. She said, what happened in Australia and Canada are examples. Let me make sure this is actually pulled up first. Yeah, we are. We're good. We're good. What happened in Australia and Canada are examples of where this leads. This administration is everything they blame the last one of being. When will they have pushed you too far? When will you say enough is enough? You should draw the line before it's at your front door. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys saw what's been going on in France lately, where the police, I mean, guys, it's literally like something out of the Star Wars, like Mos Eisley scene where Luke and Obi-Wan are having to show the stormtroopers their papers. Like that's what it's like over in France. Like they're checking the restaurant. Yeah. Show me your papers for vax papers. And Gina's right. It's like, when is enough enough? Like at some point.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like if Americans won't stand up and say no, who's going to? Because guys, as an American, rebellion's kind of in our DNA.
I mean, we were born for this.
We were made for this. So that's what I have. That's how I'm going to start the show on that. But I want to go ahead and bring out our awesome guest, the one and the only Kamran Pasha. How are you doing?
Hello.
I'm well, lovely ladies. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Natalie. And I'm delighted. I haven't been on your show in many weeks, but I'm honored to be back on.
Well, I was so glad
to have you back.
Yeah, on. I was so glad when you're like, hey, you should, or I'd love to come back on the show. So I'm
because you were on with my friend Carrie Smith, and you guys were talking about faith and all these things that I love talking about Carrie with. So I was like, hey, I want to come back on.
Yes. And she was saying how you said you should get the girls on with us on a Friday. And I was like, yes, I love that.
Yeah, we do love that. We're very flattered you thought of us.
Yes, very much so. I'm excited. And I know you're kind of recovering, I think, from the flu, maybe. You doing better?
Old-fashioned flu, not the genetically engineered by mad scientists thing, right? It's just old-fashioned kind of thing. But those old-fashioned ones, they can pack a punch, and this one knocked me out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah, the flu can definitely knock you out. That's for sure. Well, we're glad you're feeling better and feeling good enough to be on our show tonight.
Yeah, I'm feeling good enough to be on your show. And, I'm still a little bit at probably 90%. So if I get slow or start stammering, it's just the thing, whatever, but it's good.
It's understandable, totally understandable. Well, did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Not really, because I'm home alone with the flu the
Oh,
whole time.
That's the
It was
worst.
because I take care of my mom, but my mom's been spending time with my sister, so she spent Thanksgiving with her. So I'm literally home alone by myself, groaning and moaning and grumbling and whatever. But lots of ginger tea with the honey and lemon helped, and all that's good. So
well, that's good. Yeah, that's not any fun. I remember, let's see, I think it was like 2011, the night after Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving night.
And I had it the day of Thanksgiving.
Yes, like I got the stomach virus.
Yeah.
And you know how it is when it's like, you know that whatever you ate didn't give you the stomach virus, but you blame it.
You eat,
yeah, and your body will react to it and start associating that thing as if it's poison. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's like, since then, I've literally not eaten like a traditional Thanksgiving because in my mind, it gave me like a terrible stomach bug.
Oh my God. Well, one nice thing happened I thought you would appreciate. I got this thing that I've been waiting for weeks. My 65th anniversary of 10 Commandments just arrived. Oh my God.
Wow.
So this is my favorite movie of all time. Number one movie.
Do you know I've never actually watched it?
I haven't either.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're both like religious people, right? You haven't watched this?
Yes. No. And I've seen clips of
it's like
it.
I haven't heard of that in a while, but I know that's like a famous movie.
Yes, it's a very
this
famous
was from
movie.
like 1956. It's actually a remake of a silent film. So it's the same guy, Cecil B. DeMille, who was this epic filmmaker, made the original silent film like in 1920. And you watch a silent film, you're like, how the hell? Because he has the Red Sea splitting and all these incredible miracles. Like, how is this guy doing this when there's not even sound, right? And so, but then he remade it with Charlton Heston as Moses, right? And it's absolutely one of the greatest movies ever made to this day. It is the first movie I ever saw as a child. I remember it because I was 4 years old. Now, they always play this movie on Passover every April, right? And so I just immigrated from Pakistan in 1976. I was 4 years old, just learning how to speak English. And my dad put it on TV on the ABC. And I remember vividly watching. It was 4 hours and I couldn't get away from the screen. And since you haven't seen the movie, it's actually incredibly epic. The special effects hold up to 2021. They're incredible, right?
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
It blows you away. And it's really a profoundly deep movie. And at the end of it, I asked my dad, because by the end of it was like this pillar of fire, which is God speaking through it and giving the 10 Commandments. It's incredible, right? And I asked my father this question that I never forgot. I vividly burned it in my memory. I was 4 years old. I asked my dad, what is God? Because as a 4-year-old child, I don't think about it, right? And I asked him, what is God? And my dad took me in his lap. He's a very, very simple guy, but he would say these profound things out of nowhere. And he took me in his lap and he said this to me. He said, God is the light of the universe, and Moses saw one ray on the mountain. And that always stayed with me. So that put me on the path both of my personal spirituality, and also I love epic films and I write them. And so this movie literally changed my life. It put me on the path I am today. So when this latest edition just came out, right, I had to get it.
Well, Gino, I do need to watch it. And I've seen like clips of it many times.
It seems like after I thought it, like even in other movies, it
Yeah.
seems like they've,
definitely.
like, played clips of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very famous. I definitely need to watch that. And I mean, that one is just 100% a faith-based story as far as what it's telling. But I recently, I don't know if you like, I just got like this itch to watch.
I know what you're gonna say, and I want to rewatch.
Okay.
I went back and watched, I believe it's 2002, the remake of The Count of Monte Cristo with Jim Caviezel.
I like that movie. It was good.
Yes, and it was like the first time in a long time I watched a movie, and I would use the word I was blessed by watching the movie. Like, and it just kind of, it made me sad. Of course, that obviously was a novel written many years before. But it made me sad, like, because there were so many cases back in the day where they infused God and faith into movies, and it was done in a very respectful and a very powerful way that just enhanced,
especially some of those older stories.
Yes,
Of
yes.
course.
Well, because they weren't conscious of it. They just were. It's part of people's lives, so it's part of storytelling.
Yes. Where today it's like God's been replaced, as we were talking about with Carrie. God's been replaced with kind of this SJW ideology, and that's what they put.
that value system.
And nobody wants that, and and we're going to talk about it today. But I think that era is actually over, and there's been a lot of news today on Disney that solidifies where I think that era is actually over. And so the time of the woke nonsense hijacking at least Disney projects has come to an end. I believe that it'll take maybe another year for us to see the product of that, but I believe that era ended officially today, and I'll talk about why.
Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to get into that, because the first thing I want to talk about, which that may even kind of lead into to a degree too, but again, you have experience. I mean, you've been working in Hollywood for what, 20 years or so?
20 years. I started April of 2001.
Okay, wow, yes. So you have the kind of this up close knowledge of it. And as someone who sits back and watches from kind of more a business perspective and just kind of a normie that's out here that isn't up close to it, something I wanted to ask you and get your take on, because of all the woke nonsense that they've been throwing into our movies now for really for the last 5 years. It's been there before that, but it really
2016 is when it was really Ghostbusters started. Ghostbusters 2016 began it.
That was the kickoff.
And I would argue that Ghostbusters, Afterlife ended. It's like a bookend.
I love that. Well, and we're gonna get into those movies.
That's cool. Yeah.
Well, here's what I was gonna get at. Do you think, because they're truly, because of that, I believe there's a huge population. It's like we're looking to be aggravated with Hollywood because they've aggravated us now for years.
It's a raw wound. And so anything that happens, you assume, that they're trying to pick at that wound, even if they're not.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, so do you believe Hollywood is aware that there is a current fan backlash against them, basically?
Sure. They are aware, they've been aware for a couple of years now. Frankly, they became aware after I'll tell you the moment they became aware. It was when when the Solo movie wasn't profitable, right? And despite everything they said, despite all the talk, despite all the defenses on Twitter and whatever, they knew it was a direct result of The Last Jedi being garbage. They were hoping that the movie would be successful to shut down all the Last Jedi criticizers. But then they knew immediately afterwards that was a direct result of that. And so then it was like, well, what do we do now? Because we have this train going in this direction on this track. We don't even have another track. So how do we get off this thing? Where do we go? And we got all these crazy people, engineers running the caboose, right? So this has been a process of about 4 years of slowly unwinding this, and it's been up and down. It's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of stuff. But I really think it's over. I really do.
That's good. Well, and as Star Wars,
awesome.
As Star Wars kind of just stopped with movies and has given things kind of to Jon Favreau and them, then you had Marvel, who began to kind of introduce things in a really obnoxious way through their TV shows that they had never done before. And it was like, where's this coming from, Kevin Feige?
Yeah.
And I've explained on other channels, but this is my theory. I believed all along, Kevin Feige is basically a geek, a comic book geek. He's basically a character from The Simpsons. He's that guy, right? The comic book guy, maybe not as overweight as that character, but perhaps psychologically as overweight, right? He has all these, and I use that exactly for a reason, because that character is basically a weirdo and a fringe guy in the town, right? And that's Kevin Feige until he became massively successful, right? So he was not psychologically prepared for the success that came. He wasn't.
Yeah.
He was always the weirdo on the fringe, pushing these weird comics, that whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly, and it was largely with Jon Favreau's genius in Iron Man, it started this thing that he had dreamed, and it actually happened. A dream came true. But then this guy was now suddenly went from this weirdo, the comic book guy at the fringe of the town, to suddenly being invited to the hot Hollywood parties and hanging out with the big movie stars, and suddenly having all this power thrown at him. And he's invited to what I call the club, which is essentially the Hollywood aristocracy, right? Which is the very thing that's been pushing the woke agenda. It's a sort of the old school Hollywood, the descendants of the Louis Mayers or whatever, who haven't created the town but are now, living off of its wealth. And so he's invited in this, and they hated him because to them he's nouveau riche. He's this clown who's a weirdo geek nerd that they would never hang out with socially, who suddenly shows up at their parties because he's making money, right? He's getting famous. So from the very beginning, I said, these guys are going to give him some bad advice. They don't want him in those parties. They're going to start telling him, you know what? You really need to do what Kathleen's doing brilliantly over at Star Wars. You need to start addressing social issues. That's your role. That's your job as a filmmaker. I say this because, again, as a Hollywood person, I've sat in on writers' rooms where people have given me this lecture where I won't identify her, but she's one of the most woke writers I've ever encountered and drove me insane sitting there lecturing me in a room about how it's so important, how we have this moral duty to make sure our storytelling, the characters, she was trying to make a character in the story black that didn't make sense for the character to be black. But she's like, well, one of the two leads has to be black. I was like, but neither of these two, their stories doesn't make sense for them to have that origin, right? She's like, we have a moral duty to promote racial equality as part of our job. I said, I'm a brown guy from Pakistan. I'm a person of color, a POC, as you guys call it, right? I said, our duty is to tell the story correctly. We put this in, it's not going to make any sense, right? And she got really outraged. Our duty is to tell a good story that makes sense. Happy to have black people in this cast. These two characters ain't going to be it. And we have a moral duty. So that's exactly what they said. You have a moral duty, Kevin, to start pushing women's rights and gay rights and this rights and that's right. And he's like, wow, famous person is telling me about my moral duties. I'm buddy at the club. I got to start giving them that. I absolutely believe that's how the process began.
And that, like, he just, I mean, it kind of sounds like a case of he just wanted to fit in. Like,
well, it's kind of like,
I mean, I guess that never goes away.
It's kind of like confession, guys. I've always been a Taylor Swift fan. Okay.
Oh, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. My fan.
I mean,
I'm a huge Swiftie. I'm a huge Swiftie. Oh my God.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
I'm a huge. I went to her last concert. I had second row seats.
I was at her last concert, and here we got this
We
with
just become best friends. Yep.
And the sad thing is, I had front row seats for the concert she had to cancel last year.
Oh, for the lover concert. Oh yeah.
Whatever. So yes,
but anyways,
good, excellent.
But anyway, we were actually just talking about this for whatever reason. We talked about this over the weekend because I don't know, you were still on Twitter probably when this happened for years. I knew she probably voted Democrat. But she stayed silent. She took the Michael Jordan approach.
Or neutral.
Yeah, neutral.
Yeah, because a lot of her fans were country and they probably were more conservative. And she's just, why bother? Why create this hassle?
Right. Yes. And on Twitter, it became literally like even people, conservatives would begin to laugh and kind of play along because anytime a big issue would happen, the woke people would tweet out, Taylor Swift's silence is deafening, like on the subject. And I was telling Natalie, it was kind of sad, like when eventually she goes all the way through 2016, doesn't say a word. And then like 2018, she decides to get all like political all of a sudden.
Well, again, even that was calculated. Like I said, I can love her and know exactly what she is. Even that was calculated to be the least damaging moment to do it, right? So, none of this is, God bless her. She hasn't been, let's just say, spur of the moment since she was 12 years old, right? Everything has been planned.
I think you're so right. Yeah, I could see that.
Well,
that's why she needs a nice Pakistani guy to rev it up and change things up. And so, But
anyways, what you're saying, I went all there to say, it kind of sounds like similar what you're saying with Kevin Feige. Like there's so much pressure just keeps being there that eventually they just kind of feel like, well, let me just give them what they want. This is what they claim they want.
I felt the pressure, because the moment you break in, they start monitoring you with stuff to make sure you fit into their environment, right? And I had my big break on that show Sleeper Cell, which got me like Emmy nominations, Golden Globe nominations. So I'm going to the Emmys and whatever. I'm suddenly in the club. I'm getting invited to big rich people's parties that I was never invited to before. And they start testing, like they will say these are all rich limousine liberal types who the only black people they know are their servants, right? I mean, and so that's these are, and I'm from the inner city, from Brooklyn, right? I mean, so whatever. So and they start lecturing about race and class. I'm like, okay, but the thing that I had, which became a problem, which I don't think Kevin Feige has, is I'm a religious person and I have a strong spiritual faith and I've got a core value system. That's who I am, and it doesn't work with this. And so I'm like, I can pretend to go along with a lot of stuff, but at a certain point, I'm like, my own belief in God has to, at least, if nothing else, make me say, well, I'm not sure if that's the right perspective on it, right? And that enough will jostle them. And so, but Feige, I don't think has any of that. He's just like, oh my God, I'm famous now, and famous people like me. Oh my God, and I want to be like, I want to be liked by these people. And so he starts doing exactly what they say at the exact moment that they've stopped doing that. They're like, they're pulling off that track. Like, you go do that. You go do that.
Yeah, it's almost like I think it's almost like they intentionally did give that man like bad advice to ruin him because.
Well, and I think that's like the beauty of, having faith in God is you're not as easily swayed by this or that. Like, yes, sometimes even me is like a people pleaser. It's like, yes, sometimes you want that acceptance and you want to, but at the end of the day, if it,
goes against your
morals and your deep down core beliefs, it's like you kind of like, you can't just sit there and not say anything when,
Exactly. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. So during the Los Angeles riots last year, right? The protests / riots, right? Again, there were riots because I have friends, particularly the poor areas of Hollywood, were set on fire. I had friends living in those buildings. They fled them, right? Horrible stuff. So I was invited to a rich producer, big showrunner, nice guy, invited to his house and during the height of all this stuff, and we were having dinner, and he was like, well, I'm so glad that the Black Lives Matter is finally taking matters into their own hands. And we need to shake up this country. We need to scare these people to realize the horrors of racism. I'm like, I don't see no rioters in this rich neighborhood with guards and walls. I don't see nothing here, in this Bel Air, whatever. It's my friends who are working class people who are living in Hollywood. That's a poor neighborhood and are fleeing. And there's got National Guard shooting and they're living in horror. And I'm like, it's not coming here. If it tried to come here, your security guards would take care of it real fast. They're talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. Those guys showed up there. Those security guards, Rittenhouse, those guys real fast, right? And unlike Rittenhouse, they wouldn't wait for somebody to hit them in the face, right? They'd be like, oh, here, boom, okay, self-defense, right? And so, I mean, that's how this town works. And because I have that spiritual faith, I'm like, well, I don't know, is that really right? I said, does that make sense? People, white people going into black neighborhoods and setting them on fire while Black Lives Matter. Does that really make sense? And the only reason I did that was because, again, I survived 20 years of this garbage. I'm like, oh God, I can't actually keep my mouth shut right now. You're testing me. And I'm like, just going to accept this blatant lie here, or am I going to at least gently respond to it?
Yes. Gently, and it can be gently, like you said, but sometimes like often when I'll have a smile and I'll try and say it in the most, that I disagree without saying I disagree in the most non-threatening way.
Just say, here's another perspective. Here's another way to look at it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I mean, they've never heard anything. And again, they're just repeating mantras. They even thought any of this out. I mean, if they don't, when you say, well, it's contradictory, I was like, they're not thinking out point A or point B, much less that it contradicts each other. They just repeat. It's like robotic. They're just repeating stuff.
Oh man, well, you're not on Twitter to get to see. I mean, they were losing their minds over the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. Like some of this,
I'm able to watch some of it, and I mean, obviously, I can't. They won't let me comment, but I saw it, and and all I can say is I'm on lots of writers' boards, and I saw all the comments from my fellow writers who clearly hadn't watched the trial, knew none of the facts, none of it, right? And they're just spouting off stuff. And it's like, he killed so many black people. I'm like, I don't think he killed any black people. But whatever. I don't think there are any black people shot. But it could be, maybe I want to, but whatever. I say, you know what, this is a religion for them. They're not interested in hearing.
Yes.
It. So I'm not going to argue with them about it. But I'm going to say this because it actually ties into what we're talking about. I have noticed a shift on those writers' boards in just the last few days, which is part of this overall shift that the industry feels that we're in a new world. For example, for the last couple of years, I've been sort of this quiet person, troublemaker in the background, questioning the use of words like Latinx, right? Which was being promoted by all these leftist academics saying to try to make Spanish a gendered language or whatever. And this is the agenda coming out of white academics trying to change Spanish culture. And the vast majority of Latinos I know, including our friend Paulie from Latina, they're all against this because this is a hijacking of their language. And other languages, like I'm Muslim, Arabic is a gendered language. Pakistan Urdu is a gendered language, male and female. And so when you go in there as an outsider to change that, you're doing that for a reason. And amazingly, in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed Latinx is vanishing on these boards. People are saying Latino. All the big leftists are using the word Latino because they figured out that this word is dead. The trades are using Latino instead of Latinx because so many Latinos in the industry were like, man, this isn't, stop it. We don't want this. We don't want this. And they ignored them for about a year and a half. But eventually there was a shift, so that even if Deadline and Variety are now beginning to use Latino again, you'll see Latinx show up every now and then, but it's now becoming the exception rather than the rule. They figured out that this word is out. That's a huge cultural victory. And people, my wokey lefty people are now using Latino again. And I'm like, wow, do you know why you made the shift? They probably don't even know why they made the shift. They just saw that everybody else had made the shift.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I will
just following like whatever is hot at the moment, you know.
And I will give Natalie, you finally got it from Jay. It's for $4.99. Hi, Michelle.
I did ask you to, did I not? I think I did. Thank you, Jay.
We got this.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
And
the rebuttal from Mr. Buttcrack.
Hi, Nat. We got Nat. Natalie's got one.
Mr. Buttcrack.
Do you really love the lamp, or are you just saying it because you saw it?
I love lamp. I love lamp.
Do you really want to say hi to Natalie, or do you just feel bad because Jason?
Or are you just feeling bad?
Do you really want to say Latinx, or is it what everyone else is saying?
Yes.
There you go.
And I would say that's the case with like so much of the stuff that they cover in Hollywood, because there is I feel everyone and hello to Demajani.
Hello.
I believe it's Demajani's birthday. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but happy birthday to Demajani.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And I see Jay in the chat saying that he was at some Disney event just a couple of days ago and they're still using Latinx. It's a process. It's a process. I'm telling you that the screenwriters, the woke writers, who, one of my friends is like his 12-year-old daughter said, I'm a boy. He's like, well, she's my son now. That's how woke they are, right? And so they have started changing. That's the change I'm witnessing. And if the screenwriters are changing, within the next year, you're going to notice a change.
Well, and all this stuff takes time. I mean, it's even like, again, Star Wars was several years ahead of Marvel getting into all this nonsense. And then Marvel comes following in. And then surely Star Wars will begin to realize that it's not a good route to go.
Well, they already do. They already do. And we can talk about that whenever you like, but they already do. And even despite people grumbling about Kathleen Kennedy apparently, allegedly getting some kind of contract renewal, it doesn't matter. She's finished, and the example I'll give is very simple. This happened to me directly. I worked for Disney. I was fired by Disney. I worked as the head writer for the Tron animated series, Tron Uprising. And I made the mistake of crossing the wrong political streams, right? Using Ghostbusters terminology.
Yeah.
I made the mistake because I'm this guy in real life. I'm a straightforward person. I'm a straight shooter. And when I see nonsense, I call it out rather than try to go around the person and backstab them. I just said, we got to fix this. And that doesn't work that way at Disney. And so I was let go. But I was let go in such a way that they needed to not let anyone know I was let go. So they basically said, this is what we're going to do. We don't want you here anymore. We don't want you in the office. We want you to leave right now. We're going to keep paying you your weekly paycheck for a year. Just stay home, enjoy your paycheck. We'll find somebody else to do your thing who's going to be compliant to what we want. And they did. And I said, no problem. I said, by the way, your show's going to get canceled because everything I warned you about is about to continue because you're just covering your eyes to it, which is the show got canceled, right? Everything I warned happened. But that's how Disney does it in particular. And where am I on the totem pole? Head writer of an animated show versus Kathleen Kennedy, right? And they're like, we got to keep this quiet. We don't want any drama, right? We're just going to keep paying you. We're just going to keep paying you. Just go home and we're still on the roster, but you're out. And so that's what happened with Miss Kennedy. And we are now seeing incredible news just today. The two big things, and I just wrote on my Patreon, two big news. We've just got more and more rumors spreading. Now we had our friend WDW Pro, as well as what's her name? Grace. I'm forgetting
Grace Randolph. Yeah,
Grace
let me pull that up actually.
Yeah, pull that up. But they both, and when it's out in Grace Randolph, it's because someone specifically leaked it to her. So yeah, that thing. I hear Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are in talks to head over to the movie side of Star Wars. So basically, they, as people may know, all of the Star Wars movies, Rogue Squadron, everything that was allegedly in production was all shut down and delayed indefinitely. It's because it's all been killed. That's all Kennedy stuff, right? So, and I said, well, inevitably now these guys are taking over. And within a week and a half of that, this comes out through two sources on the same day. That means that was an intentional leak from, I think, Bob Chapek's office, because he knows people are upset about the rumors that Kennedy isn't physically out any more than I was physically out. I still got my paycheck, right? But so he's like now putting this out there, particularly Grace, who is a very popular with the normies. Like maybe WDW Pro is popular with the fans, but Grace is with like randos, right? They all watch her, right? So this is where he needed to get it out. And so that's huge news. And then the biggest news happened an hour ago, which I don't know if you've seen. We have the official word of Bob Iger's replacement as chairman of Disney.
No, who is that?
It is a new woman. I'll get you her name because I just wrote an article about it. So she's one of the. It's a woman, and she was one of the board members. Her name is Susan Arnold. Susan Arnold was one of the board members. She's going to come in as a new chairman of Disney on January 1st. And Susan Arnold is from the investor class. She worked for the Carlyle Group. So as I've said often in my Patreon and on some of the YouTube videos, that Bob Chapek represents the investor class that is very angry that Disney has been losing money for these past 5 years. So Disney stock fell 16% in the last 4 weeks. For the Carlyle Group, for Vanguard, Blackwater, all these guys, these huge funds that hold millions of shares of Disney, that's a loss of hundreds of millions of dollars, right? That's not good for them. And so it is not a surprise that a woman who comes from in one of the biggest, sort of shadiest, scariest investor groups, the Carlyle Group, right? It's one where presidents put their money in. You don't ask any questions, right? If she representing that is now the new chairwoman of Disney, that means this is going to be a completely investor-run operation, which is exactly what Bob Chapek needed to fix the ship.
Yeah, well, that would be good because, well, and I think what's kind of weird about the Kennedy contract, it's like it was leaked through kind of smaller online sources, and then no one really said yay or nay about it.
And no trade said anything. That's Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter. If you've been scooped by random fan site, it's embarrassing. And then you try to put out a more detailed, like, let's interview Kennedy herself, right? Yes. So that we can show we're not equal to these low bozo, nobody fan sites, right? That they have contempt for, right? But not one word. It's because they were told by Chapek, shut up about this. We don't need any publicity about this. Nothing good will come out of this. I had to give her a Kamran Pasha payoff, right? But we don't need to bring any attention to it.
Yeah, and it is interesting, especially the news again that let me pull it back up, that Grace reported, because I mean it's what makes everyone happy. It's what makes sense, as you stated, which is true. It was Favreau who got the MCU started with Iron Man and his role in that. And this is what everyone wants. I mean, no one as a Star Wars fan has, okay, I should say no one. There's those who think Kathleen's done a fine job. But it's like, for the most part, we can all see, especially with retrospect, as you look back over the sequel trilogy, I mean, my gosh, the fact that there wasn't a plotted out plan for the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, and the fact that you didn't put Han, Luke, and Leia in a scene, to me, was worth firing then.
Of course it was. And guess what? Guess who watched Ghostbusters Afterlife this past couple of weeks and got really angry? Bob Chapek. He watches and goes, why the hell was I saddled with this garbage Star Wars legacy when all you had to do was this? All you had to do was this. You could have had a movie about a bunch of new characters, and as long as you brought in all the original characters and honored them, everyone is going to go wild. That's all you had to do. He saw that movie, and he saw how much money it's made and how profitable it is. And he's really angry because he's like, there's no excuse. You could have done this.
Yes. And I mean, talk about something that looks like basically an egg on Kathleen Kennedy's face is after this has come out, all the conversation from fans is, this is what I wanted with Star Wars. And as you said, Jay, I mean, he has to be hearing and seeing this and just being like, what the heck went on under Bob Iger's watch with Kathleen Kennedy? Like,
he knows what went on. I mean, at that level, they all know each other's secrets, so he knows what went on. We're only seeing the surface level of stuff. The real stuff that went on between all these people is stuff that would be too mind-boggling for anybody to grasp, right? It involves, it includes eyes wide shut parties and other stuff that you don't need to know anything about, right? That's that whole level of stuff where you're like, okay, I'd rather just believe that this is just a bunch of greedy people and not something like satanic happening here, which
right.
So,
Why don't I doubt it? Yeah.
Why do I not know what WR or WPRO is?
I guess he's talking about that person that put out WP, whatever that put out. That was the other person besides Grace that put out their thing, saying that I heard that the guys have gotten the movie. I don't know the guy. Doomcock relies on him a lot. I can't comment. I don't know who this person is. All I can go is like with my own stuff. Hey, Stephanie's a good friend of mine. One of the things, for example, while a lot of my analysis is just my own experiences and intuition based on those experiences, but there every now and then I know some things. Like I don't know Jon Favreau personally, but I have friends who are very close, or like in his inner circle of his crew that go on every movie. And just before all these lockdowns happened in 2020, I had lunch with a good friend of mine who was Jon Favreau's guy, has worked on him for the last 7 movies together. And he's like, oh, Jon hates the sequel trilogy, right? Jon hates it. Jon hates what they did with Star Wars. The movie was so influential to him. And he claimed to me, he's like, oh, Jon, just after he watched The Last Jedi, he said, what is happening here? And he said, Jon just called up Disney himself and said, guys, can I just help you with this? Can I help you fix this? This is not right. And it wasn't like Iger reached out to him. He's like, Favreau's, what's happening here? And he called himself and said, can I insert myself into this? Because I think you guys are on a really wrong track. So, that's direct intel that I got from somebody who's working with him. So I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Favreau and I was a massive fan who had the clout that he has, I would have made that phone call. After you watch that, you're just like, what's going on? Like, how is this what you guys the best you can come up with?
Well, the pivotal thing is, ladies, is understand. I want to answer this question in a second, but the pivotal thing is this: a whole generation of filmmakers, certainly the generation of filmmakers that I'm around, was made by Star Wars.
Yes.
Screenwriters as kids from our generation, they were transformed and they became screenwriters or directors or storyboard artists or whatever. So I've worked with people that are lefty of me, right? And they're all like, they were heartbroken by this because this was taking their childhood away, right? They didn't care. They were smart enough lefties to know that this isn't real representation, to have an Asian woman that's poorly written and made to look ugly, and then whoa, we got our Asian woman there. You must all hate her because she's Asian, right? Not because she's badly written, right? Or have a white woman that has superpowers and no faults, right? They were smart enough to know that, but that didn't matter. What mattered is the movies hurt them. It broke their hearts because it took away their childhood memories like it did to all of us. So, I'm sure Favreau is lefty of me and us, but he's like, at the end, this movie made him who he was and made him a filmmaker. So he's like, I'm not going to let my childhood be destroyed.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad for it. And to answer Cher Bear's question, we'll let you answer that, Cameron. Do you think they will clean house and get rid of the woke Lucasfilm story group?
Well, I think that's already been done this year. I mean, I don't know what Pablo Hidalgo has been doing for the last year, aside from like random tweets. I don't know that he has a job. I mean, I don't even know if he's got the Kamran Pasha payoff that he's getting a check and stay home. I don't know that a Lucasfilm story films group still exists in any form that's real. But definitely, if any of these characters are still theoretically on the paycheck, right? And I call them the flying monkeys, right? I mean, I've the least respect for these cast of characters, right? And so because they're the ones that got me booted off Twitter, it was the flying monkeys. They basically, some people at the story group lobbied to get me kicked off because I was making a lot of personal attacks on them, whatever. And so then I was out. But so I don't think they exist anymore. I definitely don't think they have any power in this current moment. If Jon Favreau is taking over the movies, I don't think he's calling Pablo Hidalgo and saying, "What do you think we should be doing?" I don't think that's a name on his call list.
No, definitely not. And I think if Bob Chapek has, I mean, he clearly does have power. It's like Jon Favreau's the clear, like the one you should go to help with the movies, because the movie, I mean, what has worked for Star Wars? What Jon's done on TV? What does not work for Star Wars?
And Jon is a movie maker. He's a big movie maker.
Yeah.
He took Iron Man and made this, not necessarily the most popular character and he took that, and that I was blown away by that movie. And I liked Iron Man as a kid, but I was like, are you going to go with Iron Man to start this? I'm going to go with Thor, and I was like, I got to go watch this again. This is incredible.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I just think that, I mean, it makes sense. And I would say Grace is probably right. And then I think too,
I had to laugh in the chat. But and also, Cameron, I wanted to tell you, I love your energy. Like, you're so high energy.
I know.
This is me after a flu. This is me at 80%.
I can't. I got to see you at 100%. I needed to just rub off of you onto me,
guys. This is what Kamran has anymore.
It gives me
wings. He's got his wings.
But there's the example. There's another example of one of the great warriors against the woke in our time, right? You've got Chappelle, who's incredibly courageous. For him to take those stances and to take the hits that came with those stances. I mean, he lost a lot. People canceled his, after this dumb fake Netflix controversy, people canceled a lot of his appearances. He lost money, right?
Yeah.
But he never, ever wavered, and he still won't waver. And it's because he's actually a religious person too. He never talks about it. He's actually Muslim too. And he's like, it was his faith that saved him when he was being offered that $60 million, remember 15 years ago. And he said, but basically, and he said in an interview, he said, I was sitting opposite the devil. And he said, I'm not speaking symbolically. He knew these people were the devil, and they were going to control not just his comedy, but his soul. This was the payoff to enter the club that Feige was being offered, right? And he's like, if you can imagine, this guy's an up-and-coming comic, just got a little small show that's a little popular. Now he's being offered $60 million, right? Imagine him walking away from that and disappearing for 10 years. And I know for a fact, one of my closest friends is Muhammad Ali's daughter, Mariam, right? His eldest daughter. And she's very close with Chappelle. And she said Chappelle went through a huge spiritual crisis. And he said, this is a test from God. If I take this money, I'm giving up my soul. And he said he went and he has a spiritual teacher in Africa. And he went to his spiritual teacher and he spent time there trying to, I got to clean my heart because that money was so tempting. I wanted to take it. I wanted to take it.
Well, yeah, the money would tempt anybody.
Yeah, $60 million. Most people are not going to be able to walk away. And the fact that he did that, he canceled himself, disappeared for a decade.
Yes,
he's completely invincible. He's literally like Moses coming out of the desert. He's like, "What are you going to do to me now? What are you going to do to me?"
Yeah.
I was going to say it's like a testament to faith.
Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely.
And Hollywood couldn't understand it. They were guy walking away. They for years in Hollywood, they called him a crackhead. They said he must have been mentally ill because they couldn't understand. It's like, no, God doesn't want me to take your money. They couldn't grasp that. And from a black man who they just thought was making all these these jokes with a lot of F words and whatever, they couldn't understand that hidden beneath that facade is a religious person. And he's like, God doesn't want me working with you people. Their minds were boggled. They couldn't grasp it.
Yeah, that he didn't want to be a part of their club. No,
I mean, we really have one person to answer to. I mean,
our creator. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. And the industry can't grasp it at all.
No, gosh, no. Well, yeah, because kind of money and that power. I mean, that is their god.
Yeah, right.
It's a god that betrays them every time.
Yes,
but whatever. They don't learn. So
they don't. No, definitely not. Well, I wanted to pull this up because you brought up Ghostbusters. So this is the 2016 Ghostbusters that got a 49 from the audience and a 74 from the.
This was the beginning of when the critics were like, "We just got to say it's good because we can't say it's bad," right? And then we got this thing here.
Afterlife,
this one's on us, guys.
You've got a 63, so less than the 2016, but a 95 from fans. And no, I think you're totally right. And actually, he said this earlier, and we'll go back to what he said. Yeah. Ghostbusters 2016 was the beginning of truly the SJW push of because it was the first time they began to call fans sexist for not liking something because they just didn't like it.
Right, which is so unfair.
Yeah.
It was a new phenomenon. Remember when we were younger and you had Siskel and Ebert and they would do thumbs up or thumbs down? You had real film critics that you could rely on. And maybe if Siskel and Ebert both don't like the movie, maybe I'm not going to go see it, right?
Yeah.
Because they were normal people reaching out to normal people. And then you were like, this disconnect was like, what's happening here? And again, the timing of it. Guess what happened? This is certain gentleman got elected president. And so they were all felt this incredible panicky need that we've got to change the narrative or we're going to become a Nazi fascist society. Yeah. And here in 2021, show me your papers.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's insane. But I think you may be right. I mean, I hope you're right in the fact that it was 2016 Ghostbusters that started it. And maybe this Afterlife will begin to wake people up and start a new trend of, actually fans just like when you respect source material if you're going to go back and revisit things from 30 plus years ago.
What's amazing is I love this movie. I love this movie so much. And I'm going to go see it because I was sick. I didn't get to see it last week. I was going to see it in IMAX with friends last week. I didn't. But what's amazing is this is more family oriented than the original film was. The original film is very risque. There's a lot of sexy jokes. It's not for children, right? And it's scary.
Yes.
This can be scary too. But this is like my sister took my niece and nephew to this, and this was completely family oriented jokes, right? There's a few risque jokes, but the kids didn't get them, right?
Right.
So this was intentionally done not only to be fan service, but to be as broadly entertaining as possible. This was an intentional choice. Reitman not only honored his father's work, he also smartly said, I'm going to relaunch this franchise and make it for everyone, not just adults, which originally it was.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a smart choice.
It is. Well, because then it becomes what Star Wars has always been in the past,
that's
where
true for everybody.
For everyone, because there is a difference, as he's saying, which he's right. This movie to me, and I've said this before, it is a family film. Like families can enjoy this movie, which is different than saying it's a kid movie.
My sister loved it, and my niece loved it.
Yes, yeah. Natalie's daughter loved it. My other niece loved it. One of my nephews, who's 10, he said it's a 10 out of 10. Yeah. He loved it.
Because it's actually all of our fantasies when we were kids. That moment. Yes. When Phoebe comes out on the gunner seat and is blasting away with the proton pack, every one of us wanted to do that as a child. We all wanted to hold the proton pack and sit in the gunner seat and do it, right? So it's fulfillment of a whole generation's wishes.
So did you say you haven't seen this yet? We won't ruin anything.
No, I have seen this.
Okay, good.
I love it so much. I want to see it multiple times.
Good. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I loved it too. And Nicole loved it as well. I know some people did it, but for the most part, people are really loving it. And I had a smile on my face the whole movie. It was just a fun movie.
I really did like it. I was so tired the night we did the review, like after we saw the movie, which was not my best. And I'm just like a bump on a log, but I really did enjoy it. Like the end even made me cry. I was really tired, but I didn't even know why I was crying. But
I was tearing up. The people in the audience were tearing up when spoiler alert, certain person returns, right? Which is exactly what they needed to do with Luke. But they did it so respectfully. But also, something that really struck me as well is and for this generation, this is the first movie I've seen made for children on the spectrum. I've never seen that before. These are Phoebe is really someone that we would define in this generation as on the spectrum, as autistic. In my generation, she's just a nerd like I was, right? I'm probably on the spectrum. I don't know. Thankfully, nobody diagnosed me in my generation, right? So, but my niece is, when I watched it, the reason it touched me is my niece, is on the spectrum and is very similar personality to Phoebe and makes the same kind of jokes and then explains her jokes just like Phoebe does, right? and that's what I started. My sister said she couldn't stop laughing because it was her daughter. It was her daughter who's sitting next to her, who's laughing and who's enjoying because finally she saw someone, and it's not I need someone that looks like me. I actually have someone that is socially weird and dysfunctional like me, who's the heroine, right? And that's actually touching. That's not pandering. That's from the heart.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Yeah, well, and her character, what's so funny about this is there's been some of the really woke critics, like, critics, but they kind of they're mad that people are liking this more than the 2016 one. And they're trying to come against it like sexist fans. And what's so ridiculous about that argument is the lead character of this movie is a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, it's true. Who kind of stole the show in some way.
Definitely.
That's how Reitman outsmarted all of them. He outsmarted all of them, right? He put a critic-proof movie because they can say that nonsense. Not going to make one difference. Not one person is not going to go see that film because of that, and it sounds so ludicrous, those reviews, that you realize it sounds outdated. It sounds like people from the Victorian era commenting on rock and roll. It's like, you don't get it, man. You're from another time. You're living in this 2016 woke world that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. It's very true. And I wanted to, let me see. There's another thing I wanted to pull up and discuss with you. This comes from, because I don't know if you've seen, were you into I'm sure as a film person, you watched The Matrix when it came out.
Of course. Yeah.
Yes. And of course,
course.
Well, I knew he would because it was such a, I mean, it was such a big move.
It was a phenomenal.
Yeah, for
but also as a spiritual mystic, I'm a Sufi, which is sort of a Muslim mystic, right? And as a mystic, I got the deeper teachings that reality isn't what it appears to be, which is the message of the movie. It's not about cool special effects. It's about the reality is not what it appears to be.
Definitely. Yes, absolutely.
There are a lot of cool messages. Yeah,
there are. And I don't know if you saw, but there recently is a, let's see it, like an interview done with one of the people that's working on the new Matrix that's coming out in December. And he used the word, which is like one of those words. Now, hopefully he didn't mean it in the way that we're going to take it, but he used the word, it subverts expectations. And
he probably meant it. He probably meant it. I don't have any hope for this new. I saw the trailer, and my understanding it's essentially a reboot with the same characters, but like maybe Trinity is the one this time. I don't know.
That would be my guess.
And then I don't need that movie.
Yeah, I don't either. And
nobody needs that movie. And the fact that only one of the Wachowskis is there is a bad sign to me. And so I don't know. I think it's going to be a disaster. But this message here that this person is, dear Hollywood, subverting expectations is a bad idea. You to subvert, to overturn, overthrow from the foundation, to pervert or corrupt. I have said this whenever, and it's a standard Hollywood thing. I'm sitting in a writer's room. People are like, we got to subvert expectations. I'm like, why don't we just try to surprise people?
Yeah.
It's a positive thing. Why don't we give them what they want, but in a way they didn't expect? Subversion means don't give them what they want, which makes no sense whatsoever.
A little less subverting.
Yeah. Well, but that comes from the ugly, because that's what Marxism is. It's subversion, right? This entire dialectic is cultural Marxism, right? And that's all this is. It's nothing more than that. And so, of course, that language would be used because they are attempting to subvert our heroes. Because if you take our heroes away, then there is no hero left except the leader of the proletariat, who's proclaimed themselves your new hero. So
yes, absolutely. Well, and I think you're exactly right. I'm just waiting for them to like ruin Neo's character and for him not to be the one, and for guess what, a female to be the one.
I have a really bad feeling about this. I don't see any
reason. Too.
If this was a continuation of The Matrix is Back, and they had their memories erased or whatever because of what happened, but then she died, so I don't know.
Yes.
And so it's just like, I think it's just a weirdo reboot, and I'm just like, this is not good. This just don't do this. And I think it's going to be a disaster personally.
Yeah, I do too. Once they, and maybe they subvert our expectations by using that word incorrectly, and it's good. But
no, I think whenever someone uses that word, they really are part of that Marxist, thing. They are. I never use that word. I hate that word because I know it's an ugly word. I know it's a word that's an aggressive attack on the fans and the things that we love. I will never use that word.
Oh, well, it's terrible. And it's just like, that's why I love this tweet when she broke down.
Overturn or overthrow from the foundation.
To ruin, which is funny because people literally call Rian Johnson Ruin Johnson.
To pervert or corrupt by an undermining of morals, allegiance, or faith. Wow.
Yeah. Does that not totally describe? Dang. Okay, so when you break down the word subvert here, as she did, I mean, is that not totally? That's a play-by-play of what Ryan or Ruin Johnson, as they call him, what he did to Luke Skywalker's character. Like that's what he did.
Yeah, that was what he did. Look, he's a very talented director. He's not a writer, and I've enjoyed some of his movies. I was excited for seeing his film because I'd liked Looper. And then when this movie happened, within the first 5 minutes, I'm like, what's happening here? What's happening? When they made the first Yo Mama joke, I'm like, this is not right. And then the moment they threw Luke threw the saber over his shoulder, I was like, okay, we're in really big trouble, right? And by the end of the movie, I was like, please God, end my pain. I thought the movie's over. It's not over. There's more garbage, and it just kept going, right? Every time, like, movie's over, right? It's over. Oh, and now it's over with no ending. So it was the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It's the worst movie I've ever seen. There's nothing like it. It's magical in its garbageness, and it's because it is written purely for the sake of subversion. Not just does it subvert Luke Skywalker as a hero,
the Jedi Order.
It subverts the entire Star Wars galaxy. Subverts but not only does it just subvert that, it subverts basic storytelling. There's no act structure. There's no first act, act two. None of it makes any sense. The characters contradict each other from scene to scene. It's like this. If someone had submitted this script to me in a screenwriting class, it would be a big F. I'm like, what are you doing? And so I was like, you're subverting the basics of our craft. What are you doing?
So is it The Last Jedi that you really knew the critics were just like, we have to say it's good?
I mean, I went to see the movie with someone who I no longer hang out with, but at the time we were sort of like Hollywood buddies, right? But I figured him out, right? And this was one of the moments where I figured him out. I went to see the movie, and he was a very woke sort of guy, and I sat there at the movie. It was over. There was dead silence. There was no clapping. Everyone was sort of like stunned, like, what did we just see? And I'm saying that, like, I can't believe this just happened. The guy next to me was like, wow, man, I'm jazzed. It's a new way for Star Wars, man. It's courageous storytelling. He was like, what's happening here? Are you crazy? Why am I sitting next to you? I mean, I couldn't believe it, right? And then I realized it's because he's just a wokoso who was repeating robotically whatever the industry was going to say. And then, of course, he's just, they all use the same phrases like, bold storytelling, all this nonsense, right? I was like, you don't want to be bold? You know what would be bold? To actually have an act 1, act 2, act 3 break. That would be bold. That would be bold to actually tell the story according to structure, Aristotelian story structure, right? Whatever. So
absolutely.
Yeah. That was just, everyone is saying it's a work of genius. And that's how I discovered the whole YouTube community, is because I was walking on a days after that. And I was like, this can't be right. Because I already knew this was coming on some level, not in Star Wars, but I've sat in writer's room where over 20 years, step by step, the loudmouth crazy person became more and more the norm, right? And then and now I was like, oh my God, they've taken over Star Wars and they're going to destroy Star Wars. They're doing it on purpose. And I then started looking on YouTube to see, am I crazy? Is there anyone else that thinks like me? And then I just started finding all these random people, who are just like, I think all these people who have 200,000 subscribers now had like 200 subscribers. They're grumbling about Star Wars. And I was like 201st subscriber going, yeah, I agree with that. Right.
Oh gosh, man, that was the movie that made YouTube channels. Like people went from zero to hero with that movie.
Well, we got to credit Rian Johnson for something. Is he literally created the fandom? He created the fandom. He actually, people say Rian Johnson divided the fandom. He didn't divide the fandom. He united them. I don't consider anyone who likes The Last Jedi a fan. I think they're nuts. They're completely nuts. He united the entire fandom, together and created a whole new, there are people that are making a few $100,000 a year off of YouTube now that were 2 years ago not making $1 from it. Thank you, Rian Johnson.
Yep, that's right. That's what Rian Johnson did.
Silver linings.
And thank you very much to the Valiant Renegade. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Hell Force of Light. Tom and I just wrapped up our show and sent everyone over here. Cameron, see you in a couple hours. Thank you so much, Tom and Valiant. We appreciate that. And this is what I've got for that.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Yes, we definitely appreciate you guys, you gentlemen.
Could you imagine making Austin Powers in the height of 2016 to 2020 of the height of the madness? Could you? That movie would never get made. It couldn't get made. No. It'll get made again, but not that time. It couldn't have gotten made.
No,
that's not a man. That's not a woman, baby. Could you do that today? Man, could you do that?
Oh, heck no. Heck
no.
Oh
my gosh, and that's one of the best.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts.
It's a man, baby. Why are you doing that to my mother?
So, Cameron, kind of last thing is I know you've got to go to another show. But do you think, because it was 2016, thank you, Natalie. I meant to do that. It was 2016 that I began to notice even shows that before didn't really put politics in their shows, all of a sudden put politics in their shows. So do you think there's coming a time again where we go back to pre-2016 where, yes, they still have their little messages here and there at times, but it's not like over the top in your face the way it's been since 2016?
And it's directly related to the presidential cycle. A certain gentleman was elected in 2016. And as a result, you had this backlash in Hollywood that they were terrified that they lost control of the public narrative, and that's how it happened. So they had to go overboard to try to take control of that narrative, and that's why it became so ham-fisted and so aggressive. Right now, well, they've got this new guy in, and now as I've been meeting with my Hollywood friends they're all like private, like, yeah, this new guy ain't working out that well, right? And even they're quietly admitting that to me, right? Brandon maybe it's time for Brandon to let's go, right? And so they're saying that, right? they're saying that. When you got Hollywood wokies saying that to me, you know that they figured out something is wrong. they figured out something's wrong, and they can't, no matter how much they want to, they can't blame the previous guy about it anymore. They now realize, okay, you guys have everything and you're getting to do what you want. Right. And it's leading to a terrible society that we haven't seen anything like since the 70s. Mass inflation, LA is falling apart. It is a crime-ridden city. It wasn't 2 years ago. It is, literally all I hear now, I live in this beautiful place by the beach in Santa Monica, right? All I hear are sirens day in and day out. There's crime everywhere. And today, there's horrific news, but it's an example of it. The crime before, again, they didn't care when it was the poor neighborhoods being hit by these mobs. But now these criminals are looting the big wealthy people's stores, right? And stealing.
Yes, Louis Vuitton. Yes, different ones. Yes, I saw that.
And today there was this. It's terrible news. It's tragic news. It's human. There was the mother-in-law of Ted Sarandos. She 81 years old, and she was killed in a burglary in her beautiful home in Beverly Hills. This is the mother-in-law of Ted Sarandos, who's probably a billionaire, right? And she herself is a very famous African-American woman, married to a very powerful music producer. These are people that are Hollywood elites, right?
Yeah.
And these guys are now breaking into Hollywood elites people's homes and killing them. So before it was okay when these mobs, these Antifa mobs, were out there hitting poor people because they don't have to look at that. But now it's hitting them. So now everyone's figured out that Brandon ain't working out. They figured it out, but they can't say it publicly, but they say it to me privately. I've heard them say it now. And so that is going to affect, they're going to realize we need to pull this back because we got what we wanted and it's not what we want. And we now need to get this pendulum back to the center because now our literal lives are at stake. Not every one of these rich dudes has 24-hour security. They can't let the world go down this path that they let it go down anymore for their own sake. They've got to bring back some kind of rationality, which means now cops aren't the bad guys anymore, right? Criminals aren't the good guys anymore. They've got to return to a central messaging that's not this extreme leftist thing that they embraced. So that's going to affect storytelling in the next year. I promise you.
Well, that's what I want to hear. Definitely. Yeah. And here's the bottom line. It's kind of like you said, you're almost predicting, I think, just based off what you're seeing, but then common sense tells me it's like, surely the money people behind everything will see they need to begin to correct things.
And that's why Disney now has an investor as the chairwoman of the board.
Yeah. Which hopefully then will begin to make decisions, as Grace reported, with giving the right people, putting them in power with situations.
But somebody said something in the chat. I don't know if Gina Carano will ever return. She may not. She's a very proud woman and deservedly so. She doesn't need to come back. I do know that Disney now has the cover. If they need to bring her back, who better to announce that than the female chairman of Disney? Who better to announce that? Right, because that covers them with the, Gina Carano is an anti-feminist, blah, 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 whatever, right? So they now, whether Gina ever takes that up, she may not, but they have set up the cover to get off the fake feminism of the Kennedy crowd. And I'm sure you've worked with female bosses. They don't got no patience for the fake feminists. I think the coffee boy might have been looking at me weird, and suddenly becomes a sexual harassment issue that I'm going to sue you all for $100 million for. They don't have any patience for that because these women have survived real discrimination and outsmarted it. Right? To become the chairman of Disney, you have to be really ruthless.
Yes,
male or female, and you have no patience for garbage.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Well,
that's Michelle's motto.
Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you for your hospitality, having me on your channel.
Yes, thank you so much. Pleasure. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, we always have fun, and we'll have you back again. We appreciate you taking your time. You always give a unique perspective. That's fun talking with.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is if anyone's watching, I've got a Patreon that's been very successful. I'm going to put the link in the chat. But I put a lot of my perspectives out. Like I put out an immediately breaking article about the new chairwoman of Disney and her background and why she's going to change things, in my opinion. Right. And also those who subscribe, they have chances to talk to me directly like we're doing here. And I'm also doing screenwriting consulting and people sending me their scripts and I'm giving them good feedback. So it's all available on my Patreon. So I'll put that in there. I hope some of you will join. I've got a pretty strong community already, but I would love some of the lovely followers of Force of Light Entertainment to join me. So
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Check him out.
Yes, definitely go check him out. And I can't wait till we get to meet up with Carrie Smith and have a discussion. All I guess. Well, let's see. That'll be all four of us.
It's God's sense of humor that the most random people, these three Christian women and this one Muslim guy together, are facing down the town. I love it.
I do too.
I mean, it might create magic. We'll see.
Well, it is already. So, ladies, thank you. I don't want to take up any more of your time. So, blessings to your audience, and everyone, please hit the like here and continue to subscribe and tell people about this channel. This really is a wonderful channel, and it needs to be even better than it is.
Thank you so much. And let me address this really quick.
Well, thank you very much,
Rick, for the $20 super chat. Cameron was a great guest. Yes, definitely.
Guest.
Very much so. Let's see.
Did we just become best friends?
Yep.
Thank you very much, Rick. And everyone, awesome chat tonight. Again, thank you.
Look at Drunk still trying to stir the pot up here.
He's always stirring the pot.
That Drunk.
And thank you to Tom and Valiant for sending people our way. And go check out them. You guys are going to be on a show in just a little bit.
Well, I'm going to be taping something with Valiant probably in a couple hours to talk about all these Disney developments that happened today. He's got a wonderful channel that focuses on the finances of it, and I'm going to talk about that. And so that'll probably be out tomorrow. But everyone follow Valiant because there's no channel like his. He really gets to the economics of what's happening.
Yes. And thank you guys. And also thank you to everyone in the chat.
Yes,
you guys are awesome.
Chat.
We appreciate it. And that's it for this week's weekly roundup. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right. Bye, guys.